Welcome to the Lazy CEO Podcast, where Jim Schleckser, author of Great CEOs Are Lazy and founder of the CEO Project, features compelling experts and topics for CEOs of mid to large-size companies. Now, let's get started with the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another Lazy CEO podcast. My name is Jim Schleckser. I'm the founder of the CEO Project, and I'm your host today. But I'm joined by the effervescent Sharon McGuire. I think she's had coffee.
Yeah, I'm good. Morning, everybody.
Well, today we're going to talk about an interesting topic, and it's really arisen over the last maybe decade as a specific discipline and a field and companies that focus on it. And this is customer experience engineering, or trying to build a process that delights people. But it turns out there are a bunch of companies that have been doing this forever, and maybe they had like a secret weapon that we didn't realize. But we're going to kind of deconstruct it and point to some of the experiences that I've had and Sharon has had over time, and maybe like figure out what's going on behind the scenes. What tools are they using to figure this out? It seems like magic, but there are some basic principles that I think are being applied when you have this really cool experience. So that's the plan. So let's start with the first part. You can't really design an amazing customer experience. And let me go to the end, and then I'm gonna come back to the beginning. You know, if I was going to define an amazing customer experience, I would think about it in terms of what would I want the customer to do as a result of it. So, like, if you had a great customer experience, Sharon, like what would you do?
I would recommend that experience to all of my friends and say, you're never going to believe this. If you need to order this or go to have this service taken care of, this is where you should do it.
Bingo. I think that, and come back yourself, right? But then
repeatable.
Bring all your friends and you keep going back. And boy, I tell you what, if you nailed that, like everybody who tried your product loved it and came back, and they told a bunch of friends,
right?
You wouldn't need any marketing, right?
Right.
Just come and try it, right? So
right. Word of mouth.
It's super powerful. And you can almost think about it as like instead of some of your marketing spend, right?
Absolutely.
So if you've got a company, a process, a service, whatever, the people come and try, but don't come back and don't recommend people to come and do it, you probably got a little work to do. And I'll tell you, I mean, we could be better at that at the CEO Project. You know, we'd love to have more and more and more people recommending it. They do, but not as much as we'd like, right? So
we're working on it.
We're work in progress, like everybody. So now we go back to the beginning. So how do I get to that place if that's what I'm shooting for? And I think one is the voice of the customer. I need to really, really understand what's important to my customer. And that may also mean some segmentation, right? So the busy soccer mom might want one thing, and the dad that's running to work or picking something up on the way home, he may want something different. And rednecks may want something different, and, urban people may want something. I mean, or rural, I should say, pardon me, rednecks. And urban people want something different. And you got to understand, who are we talking about? Because it matters a lot, like which of your subsegments you're trying to make sure you deliver this amazing experience to. And probably you can't deliver it to everybody, because what's important will be different depending on who you are, right?
Exactly.
So
how do you get that? How do you get that from your customers so that you can then create this journey for them?
Excellent question. I think there's two fundamental ways. Most people go, I'll just do a survey, right? And
nobody answers surveys.
We've tried them, and people hate them, and more than that, you end up, I think, with what you would call sampling bias. Like the small percentage it's like when you do an employee survey and you get 35% response rate. Well, the only people that responded are probably the people that are either really, really mad or
Absolutely.
really, really happy.
Right. On both extremes, on both extremes.
Never get normal. And so, but surveys is definitely part of it. And I think that can inform you a little bit. But I think to really get underneath people's skin, you actually have to do qualitative, like actual conversation with people, whether that's focus group or just talking to customers or and what's weird, they talk about, I'm gonna talk about quality function deployment, which is this Japanese method. They say a lot of the really cool stuff people never actually say. It's sort of reading between the lines that, boy, if I gave them this thing that they didn't even know they needed, I could really wow them. And that takes some real insight. That takes real understanding of the customer to even to know them better than they know themselves and match that up against your capabilities. So now I really understand the customers through quantitative surveying, knowing that's not perfect, and qualitative, actually talking to some dozens, hundreds, whatever the right numbers of people, integrating that into, okay, now I got a real picture of what they want, both what they say they want and what they don't say they want, but if I got it to them, they'd be really happy. Like one of the things that people talk about is whenever you ask about price, people say, well, I want a lower price, right? Well,
Of course.
yeah, but it's not always true, right? Or what if I said, I've got an HVAC business and we show up on time and we clean, we make sure it's perfectly clean. We always fix it one time out because we always got the parts in the trucks. The price is a little bit higher, but when we say we're there at 2 o'clock, we're there at 2 o'clock, right? And I'll make this up. While we're at it, we clean your dishes and empty your dishwasher, right? I'm just making that up. But you'd be like, oh my God, you got to try this HVAC company. They're a little more money, but who cares, right? So it's not always price, although you always get that as an answer. So
and what people don't realize, I think, with price is that you get what you pay for.
Yeah, well, for sure. Yeah.
So if you're into the bottom line, cheapest product service, you can't be surprised if it doesn't fulfill the requirements you were looking for.
Or just minimal fitting.
Basic,
No more, right? I remember during COVID, we couldn't get toilet paper like everybody else in the world. So we ended up with this prison toilet paper, I called it. It was like, really, really thin, horrible. It did the job, but it was horrible and it was cheap. So that's my point. Sometimes like spend a little more money, you get a better experience, even though the cheap stuff did the job. So
Yeah.
that's the best example. So let's go to this quality function deployment. And I just want to think about a grid for a second. And on the one, so it's the classic consultant 4-box thingy, right? And there's a quality that you would expect to have in a product or service. Yes, no, right? I didn't expect it, or I did expect it. And then does it have it or doesn't it have it, right? So if I expect a quality and it has it, I go, meh.
Right. That's what I wanted.
Toilet paper in the bathroom, in a public bathroom. There better be toilet paper. I expect it to be reasonably clean, right? On the other side, if it doesn't have something I expect to have, like I get in there and there is no toilet paper or it's really dirty, that's a dissatisfier, right? So what I go in with my expectation and does it exist or doesn't is a very fundamental. That's like the basics of delivering a decent product, right? On the other side, there are what I would call unexpected qualities. Like I didn't expect this to happen. This was my HVAC guy or gal cleaning my dishes. I made that up, but or cleaning my windows maybe, right? And if it didn't expect it, but I actually turns out I care about it. This is where the voice of the customer, because I could put stuff in there that they don't really care about, right?
Right.
But if they care about it, but they never said it, and I deliver it, they go, that's your wow. So unexpected quality that you do have is where wow comes from. And then unexpected quality that doesn't have, they don't miss it because they never really expected it in the first place, right? So we're not going to spend time in that lower right-hand quadrant. But let's talk about just delivering what something people expect first. I think the number one dissatisfier when you're engaging with a company is friction. you're making my life hard, right?
I have to wait on the phone for 45 minutes to get a human.
Yeah, time is an element of friction, but yes, like I've got to go through the IVR, through the voice response. I know I want to talk to a human. For God's sake, just let me talk to a human, please, please, please. That's friction. Why shouldn't you be able to go bang, talk to a human? Now, the answer is it's cheaper for them to solve your problem with IVR or the web if they can. So they try to push you that way. I get it. But depending on your offering, you might say, you know what, I'm going to make it really easy for them to get a human. And there are some companies that they really don't do the phone tree and the voicemail, and that they go like you immediately go to a human because they want that high touch, low friction environment. So, I mean, it's real friction. Another would be like, let's say I go to a different website or I have a new company and I've got to re-enter all of my data, right? I'll give you the look, when we set up a new account for our business, and they want the I-9 and they want this and they want our banking records and they want blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh my God, why is this so hard? Like, it's not a big purchase. You should just do it. And, obviously the risk managing people or the lawyers got involved and they said, well, we need all this information because you never know. But there must be a better way. It feels like you're making my life hard, right?
Right.
The other example is, and this is where technology solved it, was like car rentals. You remember in the old days when we would rent cars and you return the car? Do you remember what you had to do when you return the car?
I'm much younger than you, Jim.
I have no idea, Jim. Old days when we rented Model Ts, you had to you couldn't now you just drive up and they come to you with all the electronics, and you had to take the keys back to the desk. You had to write down your mileage, you had to
Right.
write down how much gas was in the car, and you go back and then wait in line for them to process you and give you your final bill.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not that much younger than I am.
I remember my parents doing that.
But like, think of all the friction that's involved in that. And I remember when they first started deploying these, we'll come to the car, we scan the car, we look at the keys are in the car and we don't have to do anything. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much better and so low friction. It took 10 minutes of my life and gave it back to me every time I return a car, right? And the same thing with picking up the car. It used to be you have to go to the counter, tell them who you were, show them your ID, get the contract, get the keys, go find your car. And now you just see the board, walk to G15, jump in your car and you go. Right?
But I wonder, I don't remember, I don't know which rental car agency came out with that process first, because obviously that's what you're saying, is that whoever came out with that more seamless process to get the car, return the car, is where you would show your allegiance or your loyalty to. Like, I'm going to go to blank rental car agency all the time. I forget who came out with that.
It might have been Avis, because I'm on Avis and I think it might have been for that reason.
Yeah.
And I just like, why would I rent?
Exactly.
And now they're all the same. They all have it, but
right.
Who cares? These guys had
But
it
in the beginning, that customer experience led you to become a loyalty member at a certain rental car agency.
Right. Now, having said this, you're willing to take on some friction for price sometimes. So think about Enterprise. Well, Enterprise is bought by some, but it's an off Payless. I think that's one of them. They're usually off the airport.
Off property.
Right. So you've got to get in a bus, you got to go to the place or take a taxi, go to the place, get the car, and the same thing in the reverse. So friction is real, but sometimes people are willing to deal with friction for a lower price. Generally speaking, you want to avoid friction, all friction. I think of here, Amazon, like they have figured out how to, the minimum number of clicks, I don't re-enter any data, right? I know it's almost too easy, right? But like, it's the ultimate low friction example. And here's the problem, I think, for us, like in B2B environments, when people go home and they order something on Amazon, they have that experience, right? And then they come to work and we run them through flaming hoops to make almost exactly the same thing to happen, right?
Yeah.
And so you go, well, I'm better than all my other bad B2B competitors. And the answer is that's not the comparison anymore.
Yeah.
It's any experience that somebody might have.
Right. And yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, when you think about your first valued experience as a customer, it was usually in the hospitality industry or the, merchandising industry, not necessarily B2B. And that has bled over into B2B. So now we all have to strive for that same type of customer experience.
Right. With like the Amazonification of customer experience, if you will, right? Because they're darn good at it.
Yeah.
We actually, so the other one, so within friction, and you kind of tapped on it, was speed. Quick is better. People don't want to waste time. The cycle of our lives has just accelerated, both at business and at personal. And so we had a speaker at our CEO summit last year, if you remember, Jay Bear.
Yeah.
And Jay said his sort of takeaway phrase was, if you give people time, they will give you money. And if you take time away from them, basically they're going to go find somebody else to work with, right? And I was thinking about the number of examples on I'll pay more money for speed, like TSA pre, which wasn't fast enough, so we got clear, right? So, we're willing to pay more money to not have to stand in a line all day long. Disney has Fast Pass, so you didn't have to stand in line for the fun rides. You just show up at your particular time. They actually have a premium service on top of that, which is a VIP experience. They'll have somebody escort you to the rides right to the front of the line. Now I don't think it's cheap. It's $1,000 or $2,000 a day. But if you're a grandparent that's got a little money and you want the amazing no wait experience for your grandkids, that's what you do. So you're paying a big pile of money to not have to wait, right? So your 45-minute wait, if they charge you a teeny weeny bit more and you never had to wait, I mean, that would be cool, right? So speed is important, and people don't think of it as a competitive advantage, but speed, people will pay for speed or have brand preference for speed, which was our rental car example, right? The other one is ease of doing business. Just if you are really easy to do business with, you're flexible, you're open to whatever people want, I think that makes a huge difference. I like going to kind of fancier restaurants once in a while, like a Michelin 1 or 2-star restaurant. And part of what's cool about that is they make the whole experience so easy for you. They will do anything you want, whenever you want. You want ice in your red wine, they'll do it for you, even though they're cringing when they're handing it to you, but they will do it. You want 4 forks for the dessert, whatever you want, they will do for you. And that's just that ease of doing business, I think, is really profound in terms of building a competitive advantage. So let's talk about another way to figure this out. So people go, okay, got it, Jim. I talk to customers. I get quantitative and qualitative data there. I understand I'm looking at friction, speed, ease of doing business. And then we're looking for surprising quality. But I want to add one other thing to surprising quality. Sometimes the surprising quality is just notability. In other words, this goes back to Seth Godin, who was at our summit a few years ago.
Yeah.
He wrote a book called Purple Cow. And the whole idea was if you're driving through the middle of the country and you see a bunch of cows, you go, moo, it's cows, right? You're not going to do it. But what if one of the cows was purple? Well, you'd go like, oh my God, stop the car. Let's take pictures and send them to our friends. It's a purple cow. That's amazing. It's worthy of remarkable. And so if you could just build small things into your process that aren't really like in the surprising quality, but they're remarkable, they build referability into your model. And it's like, you got to go there's this herd of cows and one of them's purple. You got to come with me. Let's go. Right. And I think Disney has that, right? It's worthy of remark because grandparents can't wait for the grandkids to get old enough
to take the trip.
Right. I mean, so how do you do that? The stupid, simple example is I've used this before, but CVS receipts.
With the receipts.
Yeah. 3-foot long receipts. Right. So I tell people, just if you don't think this is real, go type into TikTok or Instagram or your favorite and just write CVS receipt and see if you don't get a million videos of crazy receipts, right? Doubletree used to give, and I think they still do, a hotel chain, they gave warm chocolate chip cookies when you'd show
Right.
up. Had nothing to do with the room, but it was worthy of remark. Oh my God, the cookies are amazing, right? And
Right.
that was the room clean, were the sheets clean, were the right? Had nothing to do with any of that. But people show up, and a little something sweet is a reward for the travel, if you will. Like it was a thing. Ages ago, actually I'll give you two examples. Lexus, when they first got going, you could come and get whenever they would service, I think they still do this. When you'd service your car, they do a free car wash.
Mhm.
So your car would always come back vacuumed, clean, beautiful. No charge. It was just, but you got your oil changed or you got your tires changed, and they would do the cleaning and cost them nothing. But you're like,
Right.
I love going there because my car is always squeaky clean and beautiful when I come back. Right.
Right.
This is another silly example. When you go to I think it's Lens Crafters, and you go with your glasses, trying to get new glasses, they take your existing glasses and they clean them for you.
Right.
Small, simple, but like that little something, right?
Do you think those efforts are easier to do in B2C than B2B?
No, I think you can do them in B2B too. I really do. Let's say you're shipping a product. There's a way to include something extra in B2B with your product that's surprising and interesting, for example,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So I think it's doable. I think you have to be a little more creative, particularly on
Right.
the services side, right? I'll give you a credit. Let's say you hire a consultant to look at something in your business, and they just for free, they said, hey, by the way, we did an analysis of your website versus your competitors. We don't even sell the service, but we thought you'd be interested in the data.
Mhm.
You're like, wow, they didn't need to do that. Now, it probably took an intern 30 minutes to do it. It
Yeah.
wasn't a big spend on their part, and you spent $50,000 in consulting money on them, but you felt like it was like prize inside, that little
Yeah.
extra something that made you go, wow, that was kind of cool that they did that. They didn't have to do it. So I think there's ways of doing it, but I think it is harder. So how do you find these things, particularly the sort of expected quality and friction and ease of doing business in that space? There's a couple. One is Toyota had a model of the Toyota 7 wastes, and they include weighting, transportation, processing, inventory, motion, defects, and overproduction. I think weighting, transportation, and processing are the three that we should spend most of our time on relative to customers.
Mm.
So, like you talked, your first example was I had to wait, and that made me unhappy.
Mhm.
So, what if, and I would get the example I gave on the car rental thing. I had to go to the counter, then go to the car, and then when I returned it, go to the counter and then go to I had this transport, I had this motion that I didn't really need once they deployed the right technology solution. So
Mhm.
making people move around is like, they go, well, it's just logical. And you go, well, no, figure out a way to bring the stuff to the person. Don't,
Right.
the same thing would be true, like going through multiple departments. I'll give you an example. There was a check that didn't get cashed in my bank for a bunch of reasons, a personal one. And so I call and I say, hey, first of all, I tried to cancel it online. Couldn't do it. Had to call them. Point number one of discontent, right? I don't want to talk to humans. And then I got this person, they took all the data and they go, okay, great. Now I'm going to connect you to our whatever the heck department it was. That woman took the data again
I know. Yeah.
and then said, well, now we're going to investigate it. We'll get back to you in a couple of days. I'm like, what are you talking about? Investigate? Like, it's a check that didn't clear. I just want to cancel. It's no big deal. And
Mhm.
I don't know why they've gone to this level of security. Again, it's this risk management thing, but so try to do it on the web, talk to the first person, talk to the second person, and then 3 days later, maybe I get my answer for a simple request in my estimation. So this processing and movement, they made me move through multiple departments. They made me reprocess the same exact data multiple times, which I just could have
Mhm.
looked up on my account.
Right.
So then here's Jim on a podcast talking about it because I was happy about it.
We will not name the bank.
Mhm.
We will not name the bank.
Oh, I'm so tempted. Rhymes with, no. Okay. So how do you figure this stuff out, right? Because to some extent, particularly as CEOs, which is really who we're talking to, you're so far above the noise,
Right.
you just don't even realize. And even worse, you kind of know maybe why you do it that way. Well, legal said we had to, or we have fraud.
It's or it's been done like that for years now.
Ugh, my least favorite answer.
Right. Exactly.
Every company I've run, people very quickly learn that the only answer you cannot give me is, we've always done it that way, Jim.
Exactly.
My head would explode, you know. But there was a Harvard Business Review article a few years back called Staple Yourself to an Order. And they basically said, or staple yourself to a customer, take your pick how you like this. Go through exactly the process that you make customers go through.
Yeah.
To open a new account, or to change their order when you've already started it, or change the quantity, or whatever the thing is. And I think part of I would do this, somebody has to have fresh eyes.
Mm.
So I'm not sure it's the CEO. You could certainly try it, but everybody's at full attention and on their best behavior when you're around, right? So you don't get the normal experience. You probably need to have somebody else do it, unfortunately, which I wish wasn't true, but there you
Well,
go.
that's that whole notion of the undercover boss, right?
Yeah. I always wonder if they don't recognize myself, but maybe. Yeah, but that's it. And they get all this learning about, my gosh, I can't believe it's as bad, or why do people hate
Exactly.
us so much? Or yeah, so doing that's a better way. Just be undercover boss and see what you get, right?
Right.
I used to call into my business when I was on the road. I'd call in just to see, like, how is the phone answered when I ask talk to accounting, do I get transferred fairly immediately? Like, I'm just to see, that's a customer experience, and they don't know who I am.
Right.
So that is an option, but I love the undercover boss move. The key here is there is a managerial trait called concern for efficiency. And some people have it like they're 10 out of 10, and some people not so much. And you want to find somebody who's like a 10 out of 10 on concern for efficiency and run them through your process.
Mm.
Like my son is one of these. And whenever I'm anywhere with him, he's like, well, why do they do it like this? How come they don't have that person over here and the popcorn and he's reorganizing their whole
Right.
company standing in line because he hates to wait, right?
Right.
But you want that person to do this for you.
Yeah. Yes and no. I remember my first job was in an industrial flooring company, and in the middle of the office was the manufacturing plant. So on one side was like the sales side, and the other side was like the back office side, and in the middle. So we would have to walk through the manufacturing plant multiple times a day, and you would see these people and they're just filling up cans of epoxy. And I said to the CEO at the time, because it was a small company, I'm like, why do they do it that way? And actually, out of respect for the employee, the CEO said to me, Sharon, never put your brain into what they're doing, because they're doing their job and you're doing your job. But now that's internal. That's not thinking about customer focus. But I always have walked away from that saying, just because they're doing their job that way doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just they're doing their job, and I got to stick to stay in your lane, basically.
I was going to say that was the a couple of years ago, stay in your lane is what he said to you, right?
Yeah.
You know, what if, here's the thing, you might have been right. You know, a different method might have been faster, cheaper, better, who knows? And his answer is, I'm just not dealing with that right now.
True.
And relative to customer experience, and I think you're right, customers probably don't care.
No, right.
So maybe he said, look, if the customers don't care, I don't care. But you've got this characteristic. If you walk by somebody pouring epoxy and going, why do you do it like that? Then you've
dangerous.
It is, but like, that's exactly who you want help thinking about, like friction. If I charged you, said, hey, I want you to run through the process. I want you to point out friction and delays and things that are frustrating, might be frustrating to customers. You come back with a list of stuff for us to work on that would make, like, that upper left-hand box, things people expect to be good. Because
Yeah.
that's if you just clear those out, you're already in the top quarter.
Yeah.
Then you start working on things they wish they think they should have that you don't have. And you can't always satisfy all those, but as many of those as you can cross off the list. And then you work up a right-hand box, which is things they don't even know they want or are remarkable that don't cost us a lot of money.
Right.
That make them go, Sharon, you got to go try DoubleTree. They got the best cookies in the whole world. You're like, are the sheets clean and the bathrooms clean? And you go,
Doesn't
sure.
matter.
Well, actually, for the cookies, it would, because for the cookies to work, that would already have to be true, right? If you're like,
Right.
they got great cookies, but the bathrooms are always dirty, you're like, I am never staying at that place, right? So they have to kind of take care of business in box number 1 before you get to box number 3, I think.
Right.
So go out there. If you have things to do to eliminate friction and deliver what people expect, do that first. Then think about cool little surprising fun things that they might not expect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of the run through. I know it's a little bit basic. It sounds it, but like literally just talk to customers, quantitative, qualitative, look for friction, look for speed, look for ease of doing business opportunities, run somebody through the process who's, easily annoyed, let's say, right? Like me and you probably, and definitely my son.
Yeah. Highly observant.
But that's the nice way of saying it. And and come up with a list of it and clear out all of those things that customers expect to have. But be really clear, like there's always going to be like a standard deviation, a standard distribution of what people expect. And there are some people in your customer base that have completely unrealistic expectations that you will never meet. And if you run around like a little chicken with your head cut off, you'll spend money on people that you shouldn't spend money on, right?
Yeah. The other thing I would say is really stay in tune with your customer-facing people in the company.
Yes.
Because they're on the phones every day. They're correcting errors happening in real time. And I think if you can talk to them, if you can't get to the customer, if you talk to them and hear what they have to manage on a day in and day out basis, then you can feel the concerns that your customers may have.
I love that answer. If they said, we get 10 phone calls a day because people can't enter the correct quantity they want because our website's all screwed up in that way, you'd be like, let's put that on the list so that doesn't happen. You don't get those phone calls.
Yeah.
We get this question all the time about delivery terms or whatever it is, or, credit terms. There's a way to make it so they never get those questions.
Right.
If you do it right. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. I didn't really even get into sort of how do you get frontline people to perform at a really high level in kind of a tough job. And there's a lot of good work, which is probably my favorite book was Customers Come Second, which the idea is if you pour love and caring and respect into the frontline workers, they will reciprocate that to your customer. So you don't actually try to necessarily get to the customer. You get to your frontline people and you love bomb them. They'll love bomb your clients.
Right.
You treat people how you get treated, right?
It makes sense. But
I love that idea of using them as a survey group and a go talk to them group as well. That's a great idea. So hopefully you got a couple ideas on how to improve your processes, how to improve your customer experience. We all can work on this. We can all be better, right? Until we are winning every customer, never losing a customer, and they're bringing all their friends to us, to Sharon's first definition of customer delight. And I completely agree. Then you got some work to do. But hopefully we gave you a few ideas, and we will see you next time on the Lazy CEO podcast. Thanks for joining us. This podcast is brought to you by the CEO Project. At the CEO Project, we work with CEOs to help them grow their business. And our members represent billions of dollars of revenue and profit. And frankly, amongst all of us, we've probably made every mistake in the book, including some you haven't made yet. So if you want to learn from the experience of a bunch of really seasoned CEOs, we're a great place to hang out. In this podcast, what you're going to hear are some of those ideas, concepts, and things that are just going to help you on your journey. If you want to find out more, reach out to us at theceoproject.com, or you can contact me personally at jim@theceoproject.com. Happy listening.
Thanks for listening to the Lazy CEO podcast. We'll see you next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes and check out our website, www.theceoproject.com.